Hello everyone, this is Rick and today we are going to discuss about the Satavahanas. The Satavahanas were one of the most important dynasties in ancient India. They ruled primarily from the Deccan, and in this video we are going to go through their cultural contributions, their contributions in the field of politics and their contribution to Indian history in general. So without doing any delay, let's get into details. Ashokan inscriptions and the early rulers. Here we are going to know about how they are referred to in the Ashokan inscriptions. The Ashokan inscriptions indicate Maurya contact with the southern Deccan, and that is according to B.D. Chattopadhyay, who emphasized the significance of numismatic evidence, pointing to numerous small principalities emerging after the decline of Mauryan Empire. These localities sprang up in various parts of the Deccan, and rulers being the title Maharathi have been found in stratigraphic context at sites like Vedulapam and Brahmapuri. So these are the sites where we get coins mentioning rulers with the title Maharathi. And according to B.D. Chattopadhyay, the Satavahanas have been referred to in the Ashokan inscriptions as small principality from the area of the Deccan. Coins of local rulers such as Kura at Brahmapuri and others like Govadra, Samigopa, Chimuka, Kamvaya and Narana have been found. So these were the local rulers under the Mauryan influence, and their coins have been found from sites such as Kura in Brahmapuri. A Raja named Khubiraka is mentioned in the late 2nd century BC inscriptions found on a relic cascade at Vattiprolu. Relic cascade is the main thing of the stupas around which the dome is built, and in such a relic cascade we get a Raja named inscriptions which refer to a Raja named Khubiraka. The Rathikas and the Bhojas mentioned in Ashoka's inscriptions were transformed into Maharathis and Mohabhojas during the pre-Satavahana times. So during the pre-Satavahana times there were Rathikas and the Bhojas, and they have been mentioned in inscriptions of Emperor Ashok. The emergence of these local rulers and their titles reflects the fragmentation and reorganization of power in the Deccan. So there was a constant change in the Deccan politics, and that can be known from these various inscriptions and other sources. Now, identification with the Andhras. How are Satavahanas identified with the Andhras? The Satavahanas are identified with the Andhras in the Puranas. The Matsya Purana and the Brahmamanda Purana list 30 kings ruling for a total of 460 years, while the Bayu Purana lists 17 kings ruling for 300 years, highlighting discrepancies in historical records. So, there are obviously discrepancies in the various Puranas like Matsya Purana and Brahmanda Purana, but one thing is confirmed that there ruled a dynasty named Satavahanas in the part of Andhra Pradesh, and they ruled for more than 300 years. Some historians debate the exact chronology of the Satavahana dynasty. There is no consensus on the precise dates, but it is generally agreed that the dynasty began around mid 1st century BC and ended in the early 3rd century CE. So, for about 300 years, there was the rule of the Satavahanas in the Andhra region, and that their ascension to the throne is highly debatable, but it can be generally agreed that their rule began from mid 1st century BC to early 3rd century CE. There is a disagreement about the specific rulers mentioned in various sources. Some rulers known from coins and inscriptions do not appear in the Puranic list. So, some of the rulers whose materialistic evidences are available, they don't feature themselves in the Puranic literature, indicating differences in historical records and interpretations. So, from there is a conflict in the material sources available and the historical records and interpretations. The early rulers such as Simuka, Kanha and Satakarni I played crucial roles in establishing and consolidating the empire. So there were earlier rulers, especially rulers such as Simuka, Kanha and Satakarni I. They were very important in the foundation of the Satavahana dynasty. The various accounts in the Puranic literature versus the numismatic and inscriptional evidence create challenges in constructing a definitive timeline for this Satavahana. So the conflicting opinions in different kinds of sources uh, make it difficult to construct a definite date or a definite timeline for the Satavahana dynasty. Now, Eastern versus Western Deccan. In the Deccan, both in the eastern part and in the western part, there were different set of rulers and there was a conflict between them. Historians are divided on whether the Satavahanas initially came to power in the eastern or western Deccan. The Puranas refer to them as Andras, suggesting they originated from the Andhra region. So it cannot be said for certain that the Satavahanas originated in the eastern Deccan or in the western Deccan. However, the Puranas refer to them as Andhras. Thus, we get a fact that they actually originated in the Andhra region. The term Andhra Vritya in the Puranas is interpreted by some historians to indicate that ancestors of the Satavahanas were subordinates of the Mauryas, and the term Vritya means servant or subordinate, leading to debates about their early status. So, according to some historians, they were subordinates of the Mauryas, and later on they asserted their own dominion over the Andhra region. Discoveries of early Satavahana coins at sites like Kotalinga and Sangareddy in the Karimnagar district of Andhra Pradesh support the hypothesis that Satavahanas began their rule in eastern Deccan. So, from the numismatic evidences in sites such as Kotalingala and Sangareddy, we get to know that the Satavahanas actually began their rule in the eastern Deccan. Inscriptions found in the Naneghat and Nasik inscriptions suggest an initial establishment in the western Deccan. So there was an initial establishment in the western Deccan, and that can be known from the inscriptions found in Nasik and the Naneghat caves of Maharashtra. These inscriptions point to significant activities and control in this region. Some historians argue that Satavahanas initially established their hold over the western Deccan before expanding eastward, while others suggest an eastern origin based on different types of evidence. Now, Satavahana Empire expansion. So, we came to know about how the empire was founded. Now, we will know how it was expanded to different parts of Indian subcontinent. The Satavahana Empire eventually came to cover modern Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, and parts of Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, and Gujarat. It expanded from western Deccan to eastern coast, including the area around Pratisthana, modern Python. So this is the area up to which it had gone, and the areas which namely were under the Satavahana Empire are Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, parts of Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, and Gujarat. Pliny the Elder, who is a Greek writer, mentioned the Andhra country, noting its large army of 1 lakh infantry, 2,000 cavalry, and 1,000 elephants. He also described the empire's extensive network of villages and towns. So, we not only get to know about the Satavahanas from the Indian sources, but Greek writers also mention Andhra country and the expanse of their huge military. And this Satavahana Empire also had extensive network in villages and towns. Simuka, the founder of Satavahana dynasty, was succeeded by his brother Kanha, who extended the empire westward to at least as far as Nasik. So Simuka was the founder of Satavahana dynasty, but he could not expand his empire a lot. That was done by his brother called Kanha, who expanded the empire westward to the area of present day Nasik. The third king, Satakarni I, enjoyed a long reign of about 56 years. His reign is marked by significant territorial consolidation and expansion, strengthening the empire's power and influence. So, Satakarni is one of the most important ruler not only of the Satavahana dynasty but of the whole of ancient Indian history, and his rule is very much significant for strengthening the Satavahana power. Archaeological evidence indicates the empire's growth and establishment of Satavahana control over a large and diverse territory. So, from the archaeological evidence, we get to know that Satavahana controlled a huge part of Indian territory. Now, key rulers and their achievements. Who were the main rulers of this dynasty and what were their achievements? The foundational rulers, Simuka and Kanha, who were brothers, played crucial roles in establishing the Satavahana Empire. Simuka is credited with founding the dynasty while Kanha continued to expand its territory. So, Simuka was the founder and Kanha expanded the territorial dominion of the Satavahanas. Satakarni I, the third ruler, had a long reign of 56 years and is known for his military campaigns and expansionist policies. He extended the empire's reach and solidified Satavahana control over key regions. So Satakarni is thus very influential because of his extensive military campaigns and expansionist policies. Khadvela, the Chedi king of Kalinga, who was based on Bhuvaneshwar, in his Hathigumpha inscriptions, claimed to have defeated a king named Satakarni in his second regnal year. So, Khadbel is a king from Orissa and he is from the Chedi dynasty. His Hathigumpha inscription is very famous. If you want to know more about King Kharavela, then you please go through his video where I have discussed in detail about the source of Hathigumpha inscription. And in that inscription, it is mentioned that in the second regnal year of King Kharavela, he defeated a king named Satakarni. This reflects the regional conflicts and interactions between different powers. So there was inter-regional conflict in the Indian subcontinent. Inscriptions at Naneghat describe the conquest and religious sacrifices performed by Satakarni I and his successors. So we get evidences of Vedic rituals being performed at the time of Satakarni I. Later Satavahana rulers such as Vasisthaputra Pulamavi and others continued the expansion and consolidation of the Empire. So there were later rulers after Satakarni I, and they also continued to expand the dominion of the Satavahanas. Satavahanas and the Shakas conflict. Shakas and Satavahanas were contemporary to each other and they had huge conflict in between them. The Satavahanas and the Shakas were involved in prolonged conflicts over the control of key ports such as Vrigu Kacha, which is Baroch, and Kalyan and Sopara. These ports were crucial for trade and economic power. So Satavahanas and Shakas were trying to control the key ports in the western coast of Indian subcontinent, and because these ports were crucial for trade and commercial power. Under Gautamiputra Satakarni, the Satavahanas experienced revival of fortunes. He defeated Nahapana, who was the Shaka ruler contemporary to Gautamiputra Satakarni, and recovered many territories from the Shakas. His reign marked the peak of Satavahana power. So, under Gautamiputra Satakarni, the Satakarni dynasty defeated the Shaka ruler Nahapana and conquered a large amount of territory from the Shakas. And thus, Gautamiputra Satakarni's time in the Satavahana dynasty can be described as the peak period of Satavahana Empire. Inscriptions such as the Nashik inscription by Gautami Balasri praise Gautamiputra's achievements. They describe him as the restorer of Satavahana dynasty and conqueror of Shakas, Pallavas, and Yavanas. So he not only expanded his territory or restored the glory of Satavahana dynasty, but also conquered territories of Shakas, Pallavas, and Yavanas. Here, Shakas, as we know, were contemporary to Gautamiputra Satakarni, almost in the same region. Pallavas were based in the southern part of Deccan, and Yavanas were referred to the Indo-Greek rulers. So these were the three categories of rulers who were conquered by Gautamiputra Satakarni, and that has been mentioned in the Nasik inscription by Gautamiputra Balasri. Gautami Balasri was the mother of Gautamiputra Satakarni. Gautamiputra extended the empire's control from Malwa in the north to Krishna River in the south. His victories are documented in various inscriptions highlighting his military prowess. So he was militarily a very powerful ruler, and that can be known from the extent of his empire, that is from Malwa in the north to Krishna River in the south. Gautamiputra is mentioned in Puranic list as a very significant ruler. His conquest and achievements are celebrated, marking a period of consolidation and expansion for the Satavahana Empire. Now, Gautamiputra and his successors. Who were the successors of Gautamiputra Satakarni? Gautamiputra Satakarni's reign represents the peak of Satavahana power. His successful campaigns against Shakas and other regional powers solidified the empire's dominance in the Deccan. So, because of Gautamiputra Satakarni, the Satavahana Empire reached its zenith and established their dominance in the whole of Deccan. Gautamiputra was succeeded by his son Vasishthiputra Pulamavi. Pulamavi continued to maintain and expand the empire, engaging in conflicts with regional powers and consolidating Satavahana control. So, even though Pulamavi had faced some conflicts from the other contemporary rulers of his time, but still he also followed the policy of expansion of empire. The successors of Gautamiputra faced ongoing conflicts with Shakas and other regional powers. So, the successors of Gautamiputra Satakarni found their chief adversary in the Shaka dynasties. The decline of Satavahana Empire began in the mid 3rd century CE. The weakening central power and the rise of regional challengers marked the gradual disintegration of the empire. So there was a weakening of central power because of weak successors, and also the regional powers in the time rose to prominence, and thus empire declined not only because of external aggression but also because of internal mismanagement. The decline of the Satavahanas paved the way for the rise of the Vakatakas in the Deccan, the Kadambas in Mysore, and other regional powers such as Aviras in Maharashtra and Ikshvakus in Andhra. So these were the dynasty who rose to prominence after the decline of the Satavahanas. Now, cultural and religious aspects. What were the cultural and religious contribution of the Satavahana dynasty in Indian history? The Satavahanas strongly anchored themselves to Vedic Brahmanical traditions. This is evidence from inscriptions like Prakrit Nasik inscription by Gautami Balasri, which describes Gautamiputra Satakarni as an Eka Vamana, means a peerless Brahman, and Khataya Dapa Mana Mada means one who destroyed the haughtiness and pride of the Kshatriyas. So Satakarni took pride in himself for being a Brahman ruler, and he is the one who can be described as an ideal Brahmin, and also he was the one who destroyed the pride and ego of the Kshatriya rulers. The Naneghat inscriptions mentioned Vedic sacrifices such as the Ashwamedha sacrifice performed by Satakarni I and his successors. These sacrifices were significant for legitimizing the ruler's authority and maintaining religious sanctity. So these sacrifices were significant for for giving authority to the ruler and maintaining the Hindu religious sanctity. Hala, the 17th king in the Satavahana lineage, is credited with authoring Gatha Sattasai, a collection of 700 erotic poems in the Maharashtri Prakrit dialects. So he was one of the most prominent kings and also author who wrote more than 700 poems in the Maharashtri Prakrit dialect. This literary work highlights the cultural and artistic achievement of the Satavahana period. So the king themselves were engaged in authorships of great literary texts. The use of matronyms by Satavahana kings, such as the name Gautamiputra, which means the son of Gautami, is very significant. While some historians suggest it indicates matrilineal element system. So this was one of the prominent feature of the Satavahana dynasty, where matrilineal elements were considered while the king was on power, and that can be named from the name that can be known from the name of the most famous ruler, that is Gautamiputra Satakarni, which means the son of Gautami, and as we know his mother was Gautami Balashri. Numerous grants and donations to Buddhist monks and Brahmanas, reflecting the Satavahana rulers' patronage of both Buddhist and Brahmanical religious traditions. So, this dynasty was quite secular and tolerant of all kinds of faiths. Now, economic aspects and trade. How did they handle their finance? What was the economic policy of the Satavahana dynasty? The Satavahanas controlled key trade routes and ports such as Sopara, Kalyan, and Vrigukacha, which were crucial for maritime trade, and they fought wars also with the Shakas for the control of these ports. The empire boasted numerous urban centers and fortified cities, Pliny the Elder noted the existence of many villages and towns, indicating a well developed urban infrastructure. So there were numerous towns and cities, and also there were rural network systems, and that was noted by the Greek writer Pliny the Elder. The extensive use and issuance of coins by the Satavahanas reflect their economic strength. Coins bearing the names and titles of rulers such as Simuka and Satakarni I provide valuable information about the political and economic landscape. So there were coins of rulers like Simuka and Satakarni I, and also the extensive minting of coins prove the fact that there was no less of monetary resources in the Satavahana dynasty. The Satavahana economy was strongly agrarian, means they depended on mainly the agricultural products, with tax exemptions and land grants supporting agricultural productivity. The inscriptions record royal grants of land and other privileges to support local economies and religious institutions. So the king was very much involved in the agricultural system of his empire. This period saw the development of local arts and crafts contributing to economic prosperity. So, this was the time when not only trade developed but also local art and crafts. Decline and fragmentation. How did the empire decline, and how did it divide into many other parts? The Satavahana Empire began to decline in the mid 3rd century CE. Factors contributing to this decline included internal strife, weakening of central authority, and external pressures from the emerging regional powers. So there was not a single factor behind the decline, but multiple factors led to the decline of these dynasties, and they were internal strifes, weak central authority, and external pressures. As the Satavahana power waned, new dynasties like the Vakataka in the Deccan and Kadambas in Mysore rose to prominence. These dynasties filled the power vacuum left by the decline Satavahana. So these regional powers replaced the Satavahana dynasty. In Maharashtra and Andhra, the Aviras and Ikshvakus respectively emerged as significant political entities. They established their own dominions, further fragmenting the former Satavahana territories. So every dynasty had their own dominion, and thus the original Satavahana territory at its peak time became divided under different regional powers. The central authority of the Satavahanas fragmented into smaller principalities and local rulers, leading to a decentralized political landscape. So, the central control of the Satavahanas over its officials or local rulers became weak, and thus there was a decentralized structure in the later part of the dynasty. The last known rulers of the Satavahana dynasty are identified primarily through coin evidence. Their rule is marked by gradual loss of territory and influence, signaling the end of Satavahana political dominance. So there was end of the Satavahana political dominance, and that can be known from the fact that the last rulers of the Satavahana dynasty had only minted very few coins. Now, inscriptional evidence. One of the main sources of information for the Satavahana dynasty are the inscriptions available of that period. What are the main inscriptions and what do they tell us? The earliest inscriptions recording royal grants of land and tax exemptions belong to the Satavahana and Kshatrapa periods. So these are the inscriptions from where we get the earliest evidence of royal land grants and also royal exemption of tax. Significant inscriptions from Naneghat and Nasik, both are in Maharashtra, highlight the religious and political activities of the Satavahanas. These inscriptions record donations, sacrifices, and royal decrees, offering insights into the governance and religious patronage of the period. So, these inscriptions record the royal sponsorship to various religious events and also royal decrees. Thus, we get an insight into the governance and administration of the Satavahana period. Kharavela's Hathigumpha inscriptions references conflicts with Satkarni, providing external evidence of the regional interactions and conflicts. This inscription is critical source for understanding the political dynamics of the time. So, other rulers' inscriptions also mention the name of Satakarni, and there a story has been mentioned where King Kharvel of Kaling defeats Gautamiputra Satakarni, and that can be seen as a source for understanding the political dynamics of the time. The inscriptions by Gautami Balashri, mother of Gautamiputra Satakarni, extol his conquest and achievements. They document his victories over the Shakas. So, what are information we get from the inscriptions of the mother of Gautami Putra Satkarni, that is Gautami Balashri? What do they document? They document his victories over the Shakas and their other regional powers, highlighting the military and administrative capabilities of the Satavahanas. The epigraphic records of the Satavahanas are a primary source of historical data. So, the epigraphic records of this period are the most important source of information of the historical period of Satavahana dynasty. Now, what are the numismatic evidences available? That is, the coins available from the Satavahana dynasty. The discovery of unstratified coins bearing the names of local rulers such as Govadra, Samigopa, and Chimuka provides valuable information about the early political landscape of the Deccan. So we get names of the early Satavahana rulers who were not independent kings by then, but still we get their names as local rulers, and this provides valuable information about Deccan politics. Coins issued by Gautamiputra Satkarni, often restruck over those of Nahapana, demonstrate his military victories and consolidation of power. The coinage reflects the economic strategies and political propaganda of his reign. So, we have already learned that the Satavahanas were in constant conflict with the Shakas. There was this Shaka ruler named Nahapana who had governed over a large territory, but he was defeated by the Satavahana ruler Gautamiputra Satkarni, and that can be known from the fact that the coins of the defeated ruler Nahapan were restruck by Gautamiputra Satkarni to show his dominion of conquest over the Shaka territories. A coin attributed to Raja named Kuvirakha, found on the relic casket at Bhattipurlu, provides evidence of local rulers' significance during the late 2nd century BC. So, during the late 2nd century BC, the local rulers were very much significant, and that can be known from the evidence at relic casket in Bhattiprolu, where we get a Raja named Kuviraka. The patterns of coinage issued by various Satavahana rulers reveal changes in economic and political strategies over time. Historians analyze numismatic evidence to reconstruct the chronology and economic conditions and political affiliations of the Satavahanas. So, these numismatic evidences help the historians to reconstruct the chronology and economic conditions during the time of Satavahanas. Now, historiographical perspectives. What are the perspectives of different groups of historians regarding the Satavahana period? B.D. Chattopadhyay's work emphasized the significance of numismatics and inscriptional evidence in understanding the political and economic history of the Satavahanas. So, B.D. Chattopadhyay focused on understanding the numismatic and inscriptional evidence in order to know more about the Satavahanas. The Satavahanas' adherence to Brahmanical Vedic tradition is a recurring theme in historical analysis. Inscriptions and literary sources emphasize their role in performing Vedic sacrifices and performing Brahmanical institutions. So, after the time of Emperor Kanishk, there was a revival of Buddhism, but during the time of Satavahanas, there was a revival of the Brahmanical Vedic form of traditions, which is the earliest religious tradition in the Indian subcontinent. The use of matronymic names by Satavahana kings such as Gautamiputra and Vasishthaputra has been interpreted by some historians as evidence of matrilineal elements in the society. So, society cannot be said to be fully patriarchal, but it was also matrilineal because we find the names of famous rulers derived from the names of their mothers, like Gautamiputra, which means son of Gautami, and Vasishthiputra, which means son of Vasishthi. Different historians have offered varying interpretations of the Satavahana chronology, territorial extent, and administrative practices. The divergence in views reflects the complexity of reconstructing ancient history from diverse sources. So, there are different contradictory views available in different kinds of literary and epigraphical sources. Thus, we get varying interpretations regarding Satavahana chronology, territorial extent, and administrative practices. The Satavahana dynasty left a lasting impact on the Deccan's political, cultural, and economic landscape. Their contributions to trade, urbanization, and religious patronage shaped the region's development, influencing subsequent dynasties and regional histories. Now we will go through a summary of the entire presentation. The establishment and initial expansion of the Satavahana Empire under Simuka and Kanha set the stage for dynasty's dominance in the Deccan region. Their contributions laid a strong foundation for the subsequent rulers. Gautamiputra Satakarni's reign marked the pinnacle of Satavahana power, characterized by military victories, territorial expansion, and significant socio-economic reforms. His conquest against the Shakas and others solidified the empire's influence. The Satavahanas were notable for their support of Brahmanical Vedic traditions and Buddhism, their patronage of religious institutions, performance of Vedic sacrifices, and contributions to literature such as the Gatha Sattasai underscore their cultural significance. Control over key trade routes and ports facilitated the economic prosperity. Extensive use of coinage issued by the Satavahanas reflect their robust economic policies and the integration of Deccan into wider trade networks. The decline of the Satavahana Empire in the mid 3rd century CE led to the rise of new regional powers such as the Vakatakas, Kadambas, Avidas, and Ikshvakus. This fragmentation marked a shift in the political landscape of the Deccan. The reconstruction of Satavahana history relies on diverse sources, including inscriptions, coins, and Puranic literature. These sources provide a multifaceted view of the dynasty's political, economic, and cultural aspects. The Satavahana dynasty left a lasting legacy in the Deccan region. Their contributions to urbanization, trade, and religious patronage and cultural development continued to influence subsequent dynasties and regional histories, shaping the course of South Indian history. So that was all you needed to know about the Satavahanas. Hope you liked the video. These videos will be very useful if you are appearing for any kind of competitive exam that requires knowledge of history, especially UPSC, and it can also be useful to the people who are studying about Indian history either in history graduation or post graduation. So hope this was helpful, and please support me so that I can bring brighter contents in future. Thank you so much for your love and support.